Hey, it's Andrew Huang. So yes, I was paid $20,000 to make a 15-second beat, and I will tell you how that happened. There are a couple reasons I'm making this video. The first is just what I usually do on my channel, dropping some info and inspo about music creation. The second is that I have seen some comments from people discussing music producers on YouTube and how we, drop all these tutorials, share all this knowledge, but are we legitimate music producers? Do we have actual experience? Are we real musicians? Things along those lines. Which frustrates me, A, because I've been making a living as a musician for about 18 years, like long before I got onto YouTube and even before YouTube existed, and B, because I see this as a pervasive attitude in our culture that hurts a lot of musicians and is just not great for the mental health of anybody who's interested in making music. We're all brought up to believe that if you don't become a megastar, then you must be unsuccessful in music, and it's just not true. There are so many good, necessary jobs, there's money to be made, there's fulfillment to be had without your face on billboards and giant crowds cheering for you. There are far more people who are successful in music who you've never heard of than there are megastars. There are composers, songwriters, session players, mixing engineers, mastering engineers, live sound engineers, on and on and on. Not to mention all the artists who you've never heard of who are making a living off their music because they have not millions, but maybe just a few thousand supportive fans. I have about 100,000 monthly listeners across streaming services, and that is totally on par with lots of other indie musicians out there. Before I was doing YouTube, my income came from about half that artist stuff, releasing music, playing live, selling merch, and the other half was client work, doing the kind of thing that I'm going to be sharing about with you in this video. So I was composing and producing music for commercials. This is just one career path out of the whole mosaic of possibilities, and it's still something that I do from time to time nowadays, mixed in with all the other stuff I've got going on. Andrew Huang, the YouTuber, Andrew Huang, the artist, my online course, Flip Sampler, I'm designing modular synth stuff now. I should chill out a bit. I should probably point out, when I'm talking about working on commercials, this is separate from when I do sponsored videos on this channel, although obviously that is also a form of advertisement, but I'm just talking about when I am hired to create the music that is in an ad. I don't appear in it, my name is not attached to it. This can be a really good job, and before I was doing YouTube, it was the most lucrative thing for me as far as the amount that I would get paid for the amount of time I needed to put in. So I'll share how I got into it and what kind of options there are if this is something you're interested in doing, and ultimately, of course, how I got to this situation of billing $20,000 to make 15 seconds of music, which is probably the best ratio of amount of money paid to amount of music made that I've had so far. So, broadly, there are three different ways to get paid for your music being in a commercial. Number one, there's music that you've already made for commercial purposes, but that wasn't commissioned for a specific commercial. Number two, there's music that you've already made for any other reason that somebody finds and decides that they want to use in their commercial. And number three, there's music that you are specifically hired to create for a specific commercial. I have done all three of these. Let's break them down. The first category is called production music or stock music or library music, and basically it's housed by a whole bunch of different companies who have searchable databases where all of this music has been tagged in a variety of ways so someone can find it by style or mood. Many of these companies will let you submit stuff for consideration, and a lot of people write music just to put it in these libraries. They're just making stuff that they think will feel like good background music and hope that it'll come up in somebody's search and be the perfect thing for their project. And that project might not be a commercial. People use these libraries for all kinds of things: personal videos, internal corporate videos, wedding videos, YouTube videos, podcasts, games, you name it. Pricing can be all over the place in all of the categories we're talking about today, but in production music, the fees that I've seen are usually in the hundreds. Every once in a while, you might get one that pops up into the low thousands, and then there are also all these non-commercial uses, like somebody wants background music for a Facebook video, and it might be like $20. If library music is the approach you're taking, you're really cranking out tons of different material and just hoping that you're going to get a lot of these smaller placements. Hi, it's Editing Andrew. I just realized I should make a note about exclusivity. So sometimes clients will pay for exclusive rights to a piece of music, meaning nobody else can use it. Most of the time, though, with library music, you're dealing with non-exclusive licenses, meaning if enough people want to use a certain piece of yours, you can license it again and again and again. So that's nice. Category number 2 is licensing existing music, and this usually happens in one of two ways. First, it's just when someone is working on a commercial and they know of a song that they'd like to use in it, so they reach out to that artist. So pure luck of the draw, really. The second way an existing piece of music would be licensed would be through a music licensing company, also called a music house, who will be approached with commercial concepts that they'll pitch a variety of tracks for from the roster of artists that they work with. In this case, they might also have a ton of tracks organized in libraries like the previous category we talked about, so there is some overlap there, but there also are lots of times where they'll just reach out to certain people that they work with and say, here's the vibe that they're looking for in this ad, do you have anything lying around that fits? Once again, the fees in this category are all over the place. Firstly, they depend on the commercial's usage, so regional will be less expensive than national, will be less expensive than worldwide, web is less expensive than TV, is it running for 3 months or a year? All of these things come into play. And then if you're dealing with a really famous artist or song, clients will pay a ton more for that because they're basically borrowing that artist's clout and all of the positive emotions associated with that song and getting to attach it to their product. So the fees for that can go up into the millions. For those of us who are not world famous icons though, the budgets that I usually see are between 5 and 10K, though once in a blue moon you might get something like 30K. Again, it depends a lot on the commercial's usage and then also a little bit on the marketing budget of the company in question. Like tech companies have a lot more money than pet food companies. Also worth noting, if you're working with a music house, it's pretty common for their cut to be 50%. So just chop all of those numbers I just said in half. And the final category is custom commissions, where you would be hired to compose music specifically for the commercial in question. Here I also see budgets starting around $5,000 and topping out around $30,000. In this category, I also need to introduce the concept of a buyout, which basically means that for this fee, the company will own the copyrights to the music you create, so they'll have the exclusive rights to use it and they can use it for as long as they want. In some situations, you might not have a buyout, but instead you would have a lower fee for producing the piece, and then you would get royalties for its usage. This might be the case when a company doesn't have as big of an upfront budget, but if the commercial performs well for them, then they'll know it makes sense to keep paying to have it on the air. In my experience, this isn't very common. I think every commercial I've been hired to compose for has been a buyout, except for one, which did end up working out in my favor. The fee that time was 10, and the yearly license renewal was 5. And this was 7 years ago, and they've never taken that commercial off the air. So every year, I just get $5,000 because me from the past did a good job. With these commissions, a big part of the reason why the fees are higher is because you'll likely be doing multiple revisions for the client. They're hiring you to create something custom for them, so they have the final say on everything. They might ask you to make the whole thing faster, they might ask you to make the bass line more fun, they might ask you to change the mood at the 12-second mark because it's too purple. I've done projects where there were 15 or 20 different revisions. I've done projects where I made multiple completely different tracks, and obviously all but one of them gets scrapped. You also have to work really fast and turn things around sometimes in the same day. So it's definitely worth the money, but it can be high pressure, and you have to deal with a lot of people telling you to change your ideas and do the things that they think will be better. Music houses deal with this as well, so there's a bit of overlap with the second category we talked about. If a project comes in with a high enough budget, like maybe 10K or more, then the music houses might reach out to the people that they work with who have a style that might fit, let them know what the budget is, and ask if they'd like to pitch. And then those folks decide if it's worth their time to try and create a new track, just hoping that it's the one that's going to be chosen. Very occasionally, they'll limit the circle of who's pitching to maybe like 5 or 10 people, and everybody who pitches will get a small fee, and then whoever lands it will get the big fee. But most of the time, it's winner takes all. It's just everybody makes something and sends it in, and the person who gets chosen gets the fee. Nobody else gets paid anything, and sometimes you might be competing with over 100 other people. I stopped doing that kind of work early on, basically as soon as my artist income was remotely steady, because I just found it to be a demoralizing way to work, and there was no reason for me to put time into something where there was no guarantee of payment. But it is widely established in the industry, and it is a lot of people's bread and butter. I know music producers who spend a lot of their working hours composing for pitches. They might do 3 to 5 per month, and they might land 3 to 5 per year. So the best position to be in if composing for commercials is your thing is to have established your profile and your relationships such that people are reaching out specifically to you when they have something that needs to be scored. They know what you can do, they're confident to put it in your hands. It's still not predictable income, but at least you're getting compensated for every project you're working on. So that's two ways to get jobs: profile and relationships. Your profile is your online presence and your body of work. So maybe this is a website you've set up with a reel you've put together to showcase your style and the quality people can expect from you. Maybe you could just do it with Instagram. Your relationships are obviously who you know, and anyone who starts out unconnected like I did, you're gonna be making music for your friends and family, someone who's working on a short film or putting together their wedding video, or they want some beats to sing on. And you're doing this for cheap or for free, by the way. But those kinds of things help to build your portfolio so you can show people, here's what I've done, here's what I'm capable of. With that, you can reach further out in your network, and it's easier for your friends and family to recommend you when someone that they know needs something. Also, through the power of the internet, you can reach out to strangers, or they can stumble across you, and a working relationship can develop there if they can see that your skills will fit their needs. This is exactly the way that I started out, and this was in ancient times too, like before social media. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, these things did not exist yet. This was 2004. But I saw the potential in the internet, and I was immediately able to get clients online. I actually started in this weird way where I would post eBay auctions, and the winning bidder would get to just tell me what kind of music that they'd want me to make for them. Pretty soon after that, I started a website where you could just listen to what I had done and hire me through there. But I was also posting these weird, funny songs on the website, so people would share those around, and it was like mildly viral content before we were even using words like viral and content in regards to internet stuff. Anyway, that's how I first got my abilities out there and first found clients, and it just gradually grew to the point where I was being approached for projects with Toyota and Domino's Pizza and Google. And so when I did this $20,000 15-second commercial, I will say it was a slight outlier. Most of the time I'm contacted for a 30-second or a 60-second. 15s usually have a lower budget, or you'll be contracted for a longer commercial and then they'll include a 15-second cut down. But basically, this was the perfect storm in my favor of everything I've talked about in this video. The commercial was for a popular food product, so they had a really good budget. The client knew exactly what they wanted, and actually they had found my work years before and hired me for something else, so they already knew that I worked well with them. And yeah, it was just very easy for them to decide to come back and ask me to work on this new thing, and they only needed it to be 15 seconds. I was trying to think of the most extreme example of what I've worked on for the title of this video, but I guess you probably would have clicked on I made $20,000 for a 1-minute beat, which is something I also do from time to time. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you're interested in getting into commercial music production, all of the people I personally know who do this kind of work had a very similar trajectory as far as doing stuff for cheap or for free for family or friends to kind of build up the portfolio, and then reaching out to music houses eventually. And some of us also have been lucky enough to be able to establish ourselves to the point that people reach out specifically to us for certain gigs. I also just really want to convey that there are so many ways to work in music, even if you're not a world famous artist, even if you're not an artist at all, even if you're like me and you have an artist project, but you're also down to do other things. Music is in movies, TV, commercials, podcasts, games. It's all around us. And behind all of that, there are musicians being paid for the writing, recording, producing, mixing, mastering. In many cases, it's one person being paid for all of that. In many cases, the pay is way better than what you can make as an artist. Obviously, completely depends on where you're at as an artist. But man, I would love to get rid of this idea that you haven't made it in music if you're not a household name. Let's just take the pressure off and recognize that there are so many other valid musical jobs. Drop a comment, let me know what you thought of this video, or if there's anything you want me to talk about in the future. As usual, like, subscribe, links in the description for my music and my social media. Peace.